From sunny South Carolina, we're traveling north into the mountains of its neighbor, North Carolina, to discuss filmmaking in the rest of the Carolinas with the North Carolina Film Office. So, without further ado, let's get started. Thank you, Guy, for coming on to the producer podcast today.
Yeah, happy to be here. So excited to talk all things film in North Carolina.
Yeah. So, to start, maybe just share a little bit kind of about yourself, how you came to work at the film office, and what your role there is.
Yeah, so again, Guy Gaster, and I am a native North Carolinian. I have been with our state film office in whatever form it's been in for 12 years and have served as a director coming on my 10th year now. And yeah, I stumbled into the work. I feel awful when I go speak to especially college students that are majoring in film and they ask, how did you get involved? And it was not through school or anything like that. In fact, it was not a misunderstanding, but I thought that I could use this position to work my way into something that was more in line with what I had been doing. And lo and behold, was able to sell myself well enough that I got the film position. And once I got in, I went, hey, this is kind of cool. This is fun. And um, the rest is has been 10 years on that. And I would say, that's please understand that's nothing against film education. We've got one of the top film schools in the nation here, and I wish I had more of that background. But as a film commission and the way the North Carolina Film Office is set up specifically is we are a marketing agency, and that is what my background is in, and that's where my experiences are, and that was how I sold myself before. And granted, the person that was hiring was a film major and did have a film background, so it was a great compliment for each other. But um, yes, it's again totally in this industry by accident, but so glad that I stumbled into it.
No, I feel like there's a lot of people like that, and you're definitely not the only person from a film office that has kind of followed that same path.
Yeah, we're a unique breed, and there's some of us that have film backgrounds. There's some that have been in production. There's others that have complete government backgrounds. So yeah, it's really is, and each, even though we're all a part of there's a universe or a international association. You would think as a film commission, what you would do in one office is pretty much the same as another. You're just promoting a different area, but all of our charges are can be a little different each time. So it's almost as fun finding out what the backgrounds of the film commissioners are as it is what they're actually doing now that they're film commissioners.
Yeah, so maybe dive in a little bit more to that because I know you mentioned you go and like speak at colleges and that. So like what do you all
Yeah,
do now here?
sure, sure. So in North Carolina specifically, our state film office is actually just a two-person operation, and we are the primary marketing and recruiting arm for the state, and specifically the North Carolina Department of Commerce on trying to bring projects to North Carolina and thereby creating job opportunities and economic development opportunities within communities in our state. So, as such, where North Carolina may be a little different than other film commissions is we are specifically focused on bringing new monies into the state. So, we love our local filmmakers and we want to help them as much as we can. But again, our charge and kind of our state incentive that's set up is really geared more towards bringing out of state productions into North Carolina and having those monies that probably wouldn't have been here otherwise, being spent in the state and having those job opportunities being here that wouldn't have been if not for that incentive. So that's a big part of it, and working relationships, primarily in New York, Los Angeles, as you can imagine. Atlanta has started to be a budding film hub as well, and then certainly have contacts in other states, whether it be Iowa. Yes, we have been working with a producer from Iowa lately, Texas, and even some international. And then locally as in within the state, a lot of our job or my job is to kind of sell what the film industry is, what it isn't, but more of the positives on it and what this incentive that uses taxpayer money, if you will, why this is a good use of the state's funds, and why it should make a difference, and can make a difference to the local taxpayer. And then, of course, once the project's here, we're helping them on, every project's different. So someone may need help finding a local pig farm, and then the next person might need to see if there's a factory they can get into. Then the next person needs to blow up a house that they're going to build. And so they need to find open land that they could build this up and then have a big explosion take place. So from that end, the job's always a little interesting and can be different each day because you don't know what kind of phone call you're going to get and what the request on the other end of that line is going to be. And then you got to put on your thinking cap and go, okay, how do I help make this happen?
That's honestly one of my favorite parts of the industry is just like every day is different, and yeah,
It is.
you
We
never
work a
know.
lot. Yeah, we work a lot with our with tourism partners throughout the state and finding new locations to pitch to projects. And one of the things I always have to remind them is, we like what you would consider your ugly and your unsightly things as much as your beautiful picture perfect things. And to be honest, probably like the ugly things even more because usually that means someone doesn't care about it as much. And so a film production can do more things or possibly cause a little more damage or really have run of that location. Whereas if it's too picture perfect, then someone's maintaining it really well. And not that the production's not going to take good care of it, but there's probably others that want to use it as well. And so its availability might not be as readily available as maybe the unsightly locations is.
I've never thought about that, but yeah, like well, just like I know because I've used a number of different states like location databases. And it's like you go in there and it's like these are all very nice looking locations
Right.
and stuff. But yeah, sometimes it's just like I need an alley that looks like, a tornado went through it, you know?
It's funny because we also talk with homeowners that say, "Hey, I want to make my house possibly available for filming," and so we can't. I just said we were a two-person office, so we can't get out and photograph every house in the state of North Carolina. So we have to rely on photos that the owners themselves submit. And one of the things we have to remind them is please take a picture and make sure don't Photoshop it, don't edit it. If you've got power lines that are right outside your front door, if you're looking through the door, like out the porch, we want to see those because the filmmakers need to know what is there and then they can come in and try and hide it or shoot around it. But what we don't want to do is act like, hey, there's not power lines here, and then all of a sudden they come and go, wait a second, these are going to create an issue. So yeah, we talk about having to have truly authentic photos and locations and showing the good and the bad of each location because it just needs to be an actual representation of what it is, and then let the filmmaker do their movie magic, if you will, on how to make it all work.
Definitely. Since I know you're talking about there how you mainly work to bring new projects in out of state. So maybe like share what are like some unique characteristics or aspects to North Carolina that people might not know about.
Yeah, so ironically, it's not the uniqueness that helps win us projects. It's how well we can portray any town USA. Even on our coast, we can certainly be coastal, but we've recently portrayed even Denver, Colorado. For those of your listeners that maybe are familiar with the North Carolina coast, they would know that it is extremely flat. So how we're portraying Denver, Colorado is quite astounding to me, but it works. And with a little CGI help, boom, there were the Rocky Mountains in the background on that. So, I think that being able to be so versatile, but being that nondescript location, really does help out in that it kind of offers a blank slate to a producer, to a creative director on how to help their vision come to life for the project. I think one of the things that, in particular, those in California and the Los Angeles area are surprised about when I talk with them is how long filmmaking has been taking place in North Carolina. Our film office has been established since 1980, and then we've had production prior to that. But there, this isn't a new industry that just popped up in our state. There is a well-trained workforce that is multi-generation now, and has been doing this work, as I mentioned, in earnest since at least the 1980s. And so I think that's kind of a surprise is the quality of crew that someone can find in our state.
Yeah, that's quite a long time for you guys to
Yes.
be around. Then I guess almost kind of along the same lines as that last question, because last season we talked with a South Carolina office. So are there any like differences between North and South Carolina that maybe, productions it's worth like shooting part of it in one state and then moving, up to North Carolina for the other, or, don't come to North Carolina expecting these things that, South
Right.
Carolina has.
No, I mean from those standpoints, I certainly we'll do regional jokes between each other, back and forth, and something along those lines. I mean, just like you wouldn't want someone to say, "Oh, Nebraska and Iowa, they're pretty much the same," on that. But there's definitely some differences. A lot of it does come down to our incentives, in being that, but we have each of us has portrayed the other. I don't, it's no secret that a show that is one of Netflix's most popular and is based on a set of barrier islands off my coast, Outer Banks, films in Charleston, South Carolina. So there are certainly some folks that have watched that show that have said, I want to travel to the Outer Banks. And if they do, based on that show, they're going to have a totally different experience than going to Charleston where they actually film it. But we have a project right now that's getting ready to come out called Greedy People with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and that project is supposed to be set in South Carolina, but shot all in North Carolina on it. So, look, yes, there are certain things that you can only find in one state or the other, but by and large, I think we can portray South Carolina pretty well. I guess they can portray us all right. So, but we could also portray, Louisiana. I mentioned the Midwest doing it. We've had our coastal community of Wilmington, which is where a lot of our filmmaking takes place, gets a lot of, hey, can you do the Northeast? Can you do Montauk? Can you do Martha's Vineyard? Those type of locations. And we're able to do that. So yeah, I wish I could say there was some magic sauce or something that you could only find in North Carolina. If we really got down to it, I'm sure there is. But most of the time, people want something that's kind of that nondescript. They want it. They want the viewer to believe that it's probably somewhere else. So having it too North Carolina specific sometimes can be a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, let's maybe dive in since you've mentioned it to your guys' incentive and
Yep.
what is that kind of how it works because every state does it differently.
Yes. So North Carolina offers a 25% rebate. It is a true rebate monetized directly by the state, directly to the production in the form of a check or an electronic transfer. So It's not like a tax credit or something that you transfer or have to sell. Um, and with our 25% rebate, we count above and below the line resident and non-resident labor all at that same 25%. And there are minimum spends for feature length films. It's $1.5 million. And for a TV series or streaming series, it is an average of $500,000 per episode. The maximum payout for a feature-length film is $7 million, and the maximum payout for a series is 15 million per season.
That's nice. Yeah, I like to me, I would always rather get like a rebate than a tax credit that you got that extra
Yeah,
work to deal
it,
with.
it's it certainly makes it a little easier. And as such, our percentage number may not seem as high as
Mhm.
others, in that it is 25%. But when you look at what we call the effective rate, does that 25% equal whatever someone else's is? And my friends in Georgia, they know I'm not picking on them. It is just, it is what it is. They have a transferable credit, so you have to use a broker to sell it. And even though they advertise that it's 30%, if you get 27, 26%, that's more of the going rate on the market based on how many of those credits are currently available for sale, as well as those brokerage fees. So, filmmakers, as they're independent filmmakers, I really encourage to look at this. Look, the studios hire a bunch of people and they say this is your job and you better be good at it and you better get it. Independent filmmakers, it can be a little different. And so I do, when I'm talking with them, I say, don't get caught up just on what the percentage is that is being advertised. Look at what type of program it is and what caps are there, because that does make a difference. And I can say, as long as your programs or your project's pretty much under 40 million, if it's a feature length film, you really are going to get a true 25% back from North Carolina. Whereas if it was 40 million and you were looking at Georgia, they're going to say 30, but again, it might actually only be 27%. And then there's other costs that you do have to look at, of course. What are those location fees? Are there permitting fees? And those things add up, certainly. So, it is a little more nuanced than just who offers the biggest percentage back, when it comes to the incentives.
Yeah, definitely. So for your incentive, like what's the application process like? Are there certain windows that you have to apply in, or is it just whenever year round you can kind of do that?
Yeah, yeah, great question. We do not have application deadlines. Our program, by and large, operates functionally uncapped. So as such, we can accept applications year round. So and that's what we do. You have to file your application at least 30 days prior to start of principal photography. We, of course, want it earlier than that, but we did have to finally set some sort of deadline there. And you have to be able to start principal photography within 160 days of your application being approved in our state.
And then like, is that an online process? Is it,
Yeah,
paper process? Like, what does that all look like?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me there. So we've got a two-step application process for ours. The first is completing an online form called the intent to film form. That's just giving our office notification that you're ready to move forward with the application process. Once we verify your project does indeed qualify for the incentive, then there is an additional online form that's completed that we send a secure link to the applicant for. So two online forms, if you will. nothing out of the ordinary asked. Same things you would imagine. What's your projected in-state spend? Where do you think you'll likely be filming? How many jobs? How many people are you looking to hire? Of those, how many of those do you hope are North Carolinians? What is the project about? That's the other one we do kind of need to know. Make sure, from that end that it's not something that could be pornographic or along those lines. So we do get a little byline of okay, what is the project? Also, so we know and can give locals a heads up on this sort of thing.
That makes sense. Um, I guess my other question, kind of with the incentive, is on the back end once you finish production, like what's that process like? How long, does that rebate usually take to get through?
Yeah, so for the payout on our end, the onus kind of goes back on the producers and the production itself. Once they finish filming in our state, the production is responsible for hiring a North Carolina licensed CPA to do an audit on their spending and verify their in-state spend total. And then they turn in that CPA report along with, this is where we maybe are a little unique, we have to have access to at least a director's cut or a picture lock version of the project to move forward with the closeout. And that's, as we mentioned before, not that anyone's really trying to produce pornography, but we have to be able to sign off that it's not. So have to be able to see something to add that signature. It also helps if even though it's a director's cut, most of the projects have a start on their end credits, so they go ahead and show us the North Carolina logo that's required to be a part of the end credits as part of that. So once we receive those two documents or those two items in particular, and a few other just small documents, but it's the CPA report and the access to that director's cut that are the big things, we're typically able to pay out within 45 days. But as Micah, you're probably aware, and probably most of your, audience is, sometimes getting through that post-production process takes a little longer than someone anticipated. So, we've had some projects that have shot and been paid all in the same calendar year, and we've had other projects that it's taken almost up to 3 years. But I think even those that take the 3 years would turn around and say that wasn't North Carolina that the reason we didn't get paid then. That was us having creative differences or coming back and doing a lot of reshoots or that sort of thing. So yeah, I think by and large we're probably, I know we're very quick in getting that rebate check back to an individual.
Yeah, no, and I can relate to that. That like the past year, that's kind of been the theme of a lot of the projects I've been involved with. It's taken at least twice as long to get them through post than anybody anticipated. So yeah,
Yeah, we always get someone that's like, I'm gonna be on it and we're gonna get paid out quickly and we're gonna use this money for X, Y, and Z. And I've just said, I hear you, but I can tell you from experience, it doesn't always work that way. So again, and it's not anything that we're requiring on our end, but it's, you wanting to have your project done and truly have your spending done in the state.
with a lot of these productions coming in from out of state, are there things that maybe people or the filmmakers should like keep in mind, just maybe about like the North Carolina culture, or like, hey, what to expect if you're filming in this time of the year versus, this time of the year when you're here scouting and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, so I enjoy part of when I first started working for the Film Commission, a lot of what I was doing was escorting folks on location scouts, and I love doing it. But one of the hurdles we always had to overcome was someone would want to be filming in the summer, but would come and look at locations in December or January. And especially if they were looking in the western part of our state, where there are mountains and that sort of thing, we'd have to say, please remember right now leaves have fallen off these trees. And if you're looking to film in June, this is going to look completely different. There's right now you can uh, forest. It was always forest primarily, Micah, that would get people. But they're looking through it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! I can see almost a mile away through this forest." And I'd have to say, time out. Yes, you can right now, but if you are shooting in June, there will be leaves. These branches will hang a little lower. There's also going to be some growth from the floor of the forest that's going to be here. So it's not quite as straight line or as long of a visual as you're seeing. So that was always fun, and not fun, but just amusing on people knew that they were interested in different seasons in North Carolina, but forgot, I guess, if you will, what those seasons mean. That fall means the leaves are falling. That there is that part of it. So, and then winter, obviously, not having them. Um, I think the other thing, again, I kind of bring it back to our crew. I think there is a surprise on the number of film professionals in the state that are here, and that how many are able to work so you don't have to bring people in from out of state. I think that always surprises, especially independent filmmakers, when they really start meeting with crew and seeing how deep we are and the talent that is available. That's certainly a surprise. And last, I would say, it's the South, so there's a couple of things in North Carolina. One, if you order iced tea, you got to be able to say whether you want sweet or unsweetened. And if you don't state which one it is, you're likely going to get sweet tea, and that can be a surprise for some people, especially if they don't take in a lot of sugar regularly or don't like drinking maple syrup, as I've heard it compared to before. And in North Carolina specifically, when we start talking barbecue, we're talking about pork. So yes, you can find beef, ribs, turkey, that sort of thing as well. But when we say barbecue, we're not talking about grilling outside and doing hamburgers and hot dogs. We're talking about primarily pulled pork. So that's definitely something to get people used to right away, because it's serious business here when we start talking barbecue in North Carolina.
All right, yeah, good. That's all good to know. I'm curious just on the whole, like how deep your crew is. 'Cause some of the other states I've talked to, like one of the things they've mentioned is like the accounting side is something like
Yeah.
they're lacking a lot in. Like, is that something North Carolina maybe has a little bit deeper pool too, or is that something you guys struggle with as well?
No, no, right now, if I could go back to school and wanted to do accounting, film accounting is where it's at, because no one has film accountants. They are in demand, and North Carolina is no different. In fact, we've talked about trying to create a master program for accountants that would talk about film specific responsibilities and have that be kind of a master class, if you will, for people that were already CPAs or into accounting and looking to get into the field in film specifically, give them that advantage. No, I mean, crew wise, I think where we do surprise people, I mean, our camera departments, of course, it's film. So luckily, we have very strong camera departments. We also have a good number of production managers that is a little unique for us, but always looking for costumes. Again, those office personnel, would be great to have more of those. Yeah, to be honest, we'll take more of anything. So we can keep going. But yeah, accountants, anyone who's listening and thinking about changing jobs, sometimes I feel like there are certain positions that will be around forever, and some of those are in healthcare. But I really do feel like film accounting would be one that you couldn't go wrong in because everyone's looking for those.
That's for sure. And I definitely, I'm no master at it. I've had to do it on some projects because there's nobody else to do it, and I know just enough to be dangerous. But
I can understand. Yes, it's again not exactly my cup of tea, but if I could stomach it, I would be looking into it because I mean, we've got some great ones here, but they get picked up very quickly. And to handle those multiple projects, it would be wonderful to have more film accountants here.
mhm. I'd be curious to hear like, is there something that the film office can help productions with that maybe a lot of people don't realize that you can help them with this?
Right, right. I think for us, we are sort of jack of all trades. And you mentioned, you knowing just enough in accounting to do it, but maybe also get yourself into a little trouble on that. And that's probably true of our work as well. I mean, we've become experts in incentives, if you will, and how that program works. But we do try and serve as a connector between productions and local communities, local businesses, that sort of thing, and crew members. So I think that sometimes I can't, I don't make a recommendation for a specific individual. For example, if you're looking for um, a second AD, I'm not going to recommend someone necessarily, but we do have resources that have all the different second ADs that are in North Carolina. So I'm happy to share that information and from that information that we share, you can see a list of their credits. And so you can judge, okay, this is the type of second AD we're looking for. Does this person kind of match that? What types of projects have they done previously and what is their experience? Same's true on if you're trying to find a local antique store or a sign shop, we can help point you in those directions. And then, I mean, when we really get down to it, I love giving restaurant recommendations. And that's one where I don't feel as bad because you're not necessarily filming there and it becomes more of where's a good place to go get that barbecue that I just mentioned. And then I get to really smile and start talking about holes in the wall and places that someone can explore and really get to find the heart of our communities by eating at the place that really doesn't have billboards or some major advertising campaign. It really is just word of mouth. So that's where I don't know if that's unique necessarily. We're certainly also pointing people in direction to find the permits and things that they need. But that's again, I like being able to get someone here and then really have them find the North Carolina and wherever they're filming that community, the heart of that community, and where the locals are going, not just who has the bigger advertising budget or the flashier ad in a magazine.
Jumping off of what you were saying there, with like helping kind of the productions work with like the local businesses and
Right.
that, like, what are maybe some like pieces of advice you would give to filmmakers coming in and like working with these local businesses in a way that's like they're not going to be at each other's throats, and ruining relationships because, these people aren't used to what a film production
Yeah,
coming into
yeah.
town actually means.
It varies in this. If it's an area that has not had a lot of filmmaking before, we typically will reach out to that town, that community, and let them know that, hey, this production's looking around and we're very close and this is legitimate. There is a question. I don't know, Mike, if you've been on one of those projects, but I mean, we've got studio projects before that someone has gotten just a letter saying, hey, we're interested in possibly filming at your location. And they're like, is this for real? Is this Netflix show really reaching out to me? So one of the things that we'll do is reach out to that community and just say, hey, this is coming if you start hearing things. But we also encourage the productions to do the same thing. Go ahead and meet with that town manager, and even though you might not need anything right now, just establish that relationship with them. Because as you start doing that, then you do find some of those other businesses that sign company again that can turn it around in 24 hours. And I would say to the filmmakers, just be honest with folks as you're coming in. You know, everyone does get excited about the glitz and glamour, so they think of quote unquote Hollywood, but I mean it's not different than other jobs in that it has its highs and its lows, and there's the part that's sexy, and then there's the part that's dirty that you're like, we got to get through this. And so I think just being open and honest with those business owners on, hey, we're going to put in this kind of order, but please know we're going to need it in a quicker turnaround than maybe you usually do, or we want to use you, but we need you to be on call until 8, 9 o'clock at night. That's probably even early. But just establishing what it means to work with a film production. I think that's the key in that once people understand what they're getting into, then they are excited about it. But I think it's when they didn't really realize what it was that they signed on to, and then the filmmakers calling at 4:45, they close at 5 and saying, "Hey, we need something for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." Um, that's one where I think it does become a no-win situation if you haven't already been talking with that owner and kind of set expectations and what some of the crazy requests could be coming, because they are crazy. Let's be honest, Micah, they are
Oh,
crazy at
yes.
times.
Yeah, that's for sure. No, but that's all good thoughts. Um, so I got two kind of wrap-up questions for
Of
you.
course.
The first one would be for maybe, especially on that like independent side of the industry, and maybe it's a filmmaker that this is their first time working with a film
Mhm.
office. What would your advice to them be?
Yeah, I think my advice would be, hey, the film offices are a great asset. They've got a lot of connections in the communities that you're wanting to film, and they want to see you succeed. I do not know a film office that says, I really want this production to fail, because that just makes the next time a production comes that much harder to do. So be willing to reach out to the film office and share with the film office. Also, we understand things that are proprietary or that are trade secret. We're not going to go around and tell that, but I need you to share some of that information with me so that I can help put you in touch with the right people. And if your budget is extremely low, I can go ahead and tell you possibly some locations that are more willing to work with lower budgets and save you that time rather than you wanting to reach out to someone who, has said, yes, I'm going to make my home available for filming, but really they're making their home available for a studio project, not a lower budget one. So, that there's information like that the film office has that if you just share a little more with us, then we can help get you pointed in the right direction and to the right people and save you time rather than jumping through all these extra hoops on something that was probably never going to happen. I should say that too. There are certain locations I know. Uh, we'll go back to the fall. The Blue Ridge Parkway, beautiful road that goes through our state. It's part of the National Park Service. So first and foremost, we're saying you have to deal with the national government on this, so you need to allow some extra time. Second, it is well traveled throughout the month of October. So if someone comes to our office and says, we want to film on the Blue Ridge Parkway, the first thing I ask is what month, because in October, they will not issue you a permit at all, no matter when you want to film on it. So just by going ahead and having that information available and being willing to share it, we can help you get what you need to make your project come to life.
That's a good piece of advice. Yeah, good to know. I've been on the Blue Ridge Parkway quite a few times, but yeah, that's good to know. Not to try to film there then.
Yes, definitely not. Now we can offer you some alternatives
Mhm.
to it that will have very similar looks, but yeah, no Blue Ridge Parkway in October.
My final question for you is just for productions that are interested in bringing their project to North Carolina, how can they best go about getting in touch with you guys?
Thank you. So they can certainly find more information about our office and our great state on our website, filmnc.com. And always happy to have someone reach out via email. My direct email address, guy@filmnc.com, or feel free to call us at 919-447-7800. But again, all the information filmnc.com, or worst case, just go ahead and Google search us at North Carolina Film Office.
Well, then we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast. So thanks again, Guy, for taking the time to come on the show.
Hey, really enjoyed the time, and yeah, hope some of your podcast listeners, followers might be reaching out in the near future, and make sure have them say that they heard us this conversation. Definitely.
With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and X for lots more exciting content. While you're there, send us a message about what film office you'd like us to visit next. Until next week's new episode, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.